Oh my God, that's my baby brother. As they lay him out on the cold, cold clay, the gunmen cry, there will be others till the flag flies high on Independence Day. Well, I know your rights must be defended, and your dignity has long been denied, and I can't say that you've not suffered, but tell me why my brother was sacrificed. Oh my God, that's my baby brother. As they lay him out on the cold, cold clay, the gunmen cry, there will be others till the flag flies high on Independence Day. Well, I read about a noble leader, Mahatma Gandhi, my hero brave, whose peaceful insubordination won the right to freedom where gunmen failed. Oh my God, that's my baby brother. As they lay him out on the cold, cold clay, gunmen cry, there will be others till the flag flies high on Independence Day. And you say that truth will vindicate you, and the Bible says it will set you free. But there's one for love, and there's one for hatred, and there's a truth for you and a truth for me. Oh my God, that's my baby brother. As they lay him out on the cold, cold clay, the gunmen cry, there will be others till the flag flies high on Independence Day. But my brother will never see Independence Day.
Really pleased to be here. This came about through a chat myself and Jane had over a cup of coffee one morning in Tralee, and we introduced the event last year, and it's become part of the festival. And for the second year in a row, the same man has said to me, a man from Cavan, just as I came in the door there and the drumming was going on, "That's a great cure for a hangover." So I'm not going to take up the time now. I said it's an international event. You know, you've had your African music, you've had your country music, and now you're having a speech by a Mayo man, so it doesn't get much more international than that. Now, obviously the format of the day is going to be evolve, and it'll reveal itself. And as always, look, turn off the phone. If the phone rings, yourself and the phone will be furled out the window into the river field. So make sure the phones are off. There's loads of emergency exits, cleverly disguised as doors, so you know where to go should an emergency arise. Now, I'm particularly pleased this morning because we have a guest reader to kick off the events, and another friend of mine, I'm proud to say, and not just a fine writer, not just a inspirational writer, but also an incredibly supportive writer, a man who has been so generous to so many people, myself included, in any of our efforts. So I'm very, very delighted in my capacity, not just as Chairman of Writers' Week, but in my capacity of respectful friend. Would you please welcome Noel King.
Glissando. The sister played glissando after glissando, annoying the hands out of all of us. "Mom, she'll make the piano all out of tune," I complained, but Mother just shrugged, smiled. The last charge was when a visiting neighbour boy, who hadn't a musical note in his head, clenched his fist to his shoulder blade and used his elbow for a 5-octave glissando. With a hot face, I pushed him away, took over the stool, played an angry Chopin fugue. Coming back to the sister, it was she started it, taping herself on an old Ferguson recorder, reel to reel, playing it backwards, wishing she had the technology to slow it down, trying to make the perfect glissando. Something we've been doing with our lives ever since, the sister and I. Thank you.
But I was what in the U.S. is known as a cafeteria Catholic. I pick and choose among the teachings of the Church. Although I believe in the creed, I differ with the Church on birth control, abortion, and gay rights. I came to my beliefs through life experience, unlike the men of the Catholic Church hierarchy who make the rules. Having 3 children in less than 3 years and being 21 at the birth of the third, I believe in birth control. Being a foster parent for about 13 years, I believe in choice. An unwanted pregnancy does not usually turn into a wanted, loved child. If people who oppose abortion adopted a child, or at least supported education and medical care for children, maybe I would feel differently. But in my experience, they don't. Being a foster parent also introduced me to the horrors of child abuse in its many forms. I support gay rights. I have an aunt, a daughter, a cousin, and a niece who are lesbians. But beyond the family connections, I support gay rights because it is the fair way. Should I have more say over my daughter's medical care than her partner of over 20 years? Should my niece-in-law have to adopt the child my niece gave birth to? How can a church that preaches social awareness oppose both abortion and birth control? How can the church preach that millions of people are evil because of their sexuality? I believe gays are born. It's neither a lifestyle choice nor a disease to be cured. In 2004, I wrote in my journal, "I'm no longer sure I want to go to church. The Pope says feminism is to blame for all the ills of the world. The bishop says no gays, no abortion, no birth control. I cannot support these positions. Should I continue to attend Mass and take communion?" The year before I moved to Killarney, I had a talk with the deacon at the church I attended in Oregon. I asked him the questions I've been asking myself. Should I still be attending Mass and receiving Holy Communion? He urged me to continue, even with my doubts about the man-decreed aspects of the Catholic Church. So I came to live in Ireland, questioning my faith and the Church. In the Catholic country of Ireland, I have become even less Catholic. Despite my views when I arrived in Ireland, I not only attended Sunday Mass, I attended special services and a novena. The novena was to St. Bernadette of Lourdes, and on the last day there was a healing Mass. I had a very bad toothache that spring. I went to the 9 days of the novena masses, including the healing one. That tooth has never bothered me again. Then in January 2009, Cardinal Brady came to Killarney. There was a public meeting at the Malton Hotel with the Cardinal speaking on the future of the Catholic Church. The conference room was full. The Cardinal spoke of his experiences in Gaza the previous April, at a conference in Quebec, and on the abuse of children. The most extensive part of the Cardinal's talk was on Gaza. He also talked about hope and said everyone should pray for the incoming United States president. He said that the Irish peace process was looked on with hope by the rest of the world. He said that global justice and peace were more important than the current economic crisis. But no responsibility was taken for the sexual abuse of children by priests. It was glossed over as something to pray, about which to pray. The effects on children, which continued all their lives, was lost. When the Judge Murphy report on the sexual abuse by priests came out showing decades of abuse and cover-up, I was again offended by the Church's reaction. I know that a very small percentage of priests were abusive, but certainly most priests and bishops knew what was happening. However, instead of rooting out the cause and taking care of the victims, the church hierarchy did what every child is told will only get her into more trouble. They lied. Then they covered up the lies. The church talked more about the cost of settlements than the cost to the victims. Even after the protection of children reforms were put in, some bishops ignored these as irrelevant. I could no longer sit in a pew and listen to the bishop's letters justifying the church's stand. Irish history may explain, in part, the reaction of the church and the congregations of Ireland. In the 16th century, England imposed the penal laws on the Irish. Priests who refused to take the oath were executed. Church buildings were destroyed. This sent the Catholic Church underground. Mass was said in homes, stables, or the open air. The rocks used for the open-air Mass were named Mass rocks and are historic sites now. Homes might have a priest hole, a place a priest could hide if English soldiers showed up. Because of the struggles to be Catholic under English rule, when Ireland won independence, many people, including the guards, teachers, and parents, did not take seriously the accusations made of sexual abuse by priests. The church was all-powerful. The church, as represented by nuns, sisters, and priests, could do no wrong. Many a child who tried to tell a parent what was happening was told, "Shut your mouth, we don't talk like that about priests in this house." But the church people did do wrong, and the church hierarchy did cover up the abuse when it was brought to their attention. Even when reporting was made mandatory by a church edict, it was ignored in some cases. Priests were simply moved to a new parish with no other action taken for the wrongs done. Once a Catholic, always a Catholic. But a practicing Catholic is a far cry from one who has been baptized but turned her back on the church. I'm somewhere in between. Peter McVeary, a Jesuit priest, writes in his book, Jesus, Social Revolutionary, about people drifting away from the institutional church because they no longer find God there. That's how I am feeling. The church seems more interested in protecting herself and raising money than in spiritual guidance of the faithful. A local priest wrote in his newspaper column, "The business of the church is to get rid of evil, not to supervise it." It's a sad time for Christianity when this needs to be said. The church takes stands on personal issues such as birth control, abortion, and homosexuality, and social concerns, including housing and the disadvantaged, but then violates children. Do as I say, not as I do. Thank you.
I
I'm cross when I walk, I'm cross when I talk, I'm cross when I stand still. I don't know what their problem is, and I think I never will. Multiculturalism, integration, diversity, I don't believe in it. If it worked, I'd eat my hat. It won't work because they come here to take our jobs and our women. And our parking! It took me an hour. It took me an hour to get parking out there today. An hour! And I came on a bike. Now we have Africa Day. Africa Day! How about Patrick's Day? Patrick's Day! They're eroding our culture. Nobody eats bacon and cabbage anymore. They're taking our church away from us. An Argentinian pope, a German pope, a Polish pope. When are we going to have an Irish pope? When are we going to have Pope Pareg? And then it all changed. I was sitting in a corner. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was wearing a green Kiss Me I'm Irish t-shirt. And she did, Rosica from Mozambique. What a sense of humor. She's got a great sense of humor. She laughs at all my jokes. And now I smile when I walk, I smile when I talk, I smile when I stand still. I never felt this way before, and I hope I always will.
I just want to tell you a little story. It's about my grandfather. As a young child, he used to like to go for a few drinks at night, and when he'd come home, no one else wanted to be bothered listening to him. They'd go to bed. But I used to love to sit up all night listening to him. And he used to tell me lots of stories about when he was young in Abidorney. And this is one he used to tell me. So I've called it the blacksmith. My grandfather was a blacksmith, and he took pride in telling everyone that he was the 9th generation to the forge. So he had his forge in the village. And across the road from him, there was another blacksmith. Now, that was fine because everyone had horses that time, so there was plenty of business for all of them. But they didn't get on very well. So one day, Grandad went home for his dinner, at dinner time, and when he came back, he found graffiti rubbed all over the door of his forge. Probably cow dung, I would imagine. And he found a piece of chalk, and he wrote on the door, "This dirty brute, he came here to do it. May vengeance on him fall. He stuck his thumb up his bum, and he rubbed it to my wall." That's it.
The first poem is about a friend of mine, John McCarthy from Cork. He passed away a number of years ago. I had a lot of mercy in him. He's a good friend and very much an influence on the way I think and the way I behave, at least in principle anyway. And I wrote the following poem in his memory. It's called A Friendship in memory of John McCarthy. During Writers' Week, you said with humour, "Don't mind him, he's a bollocks," to a mature blonde I was hoping to get a room with. In the public house, poetry was in the air, fun-filled and unsorted. I cocked off a fart in the smoking room. "Better out than in," you said. According to Book Club, you made a pot of soup, gave an anxious mind strength for a road ahead. Normally mad Bedstone, death did not quieten you, or your fight for justice and equality. I am most thankful for a friendship of survivors shared by me, a pretended poet. Man from the rebel county, your decency and neurotransmitters are missed. I think it's self-explanatory. It's inspired by William Butler Yeats and Leonard Cohen. William Butler Yeats' influence being The Swans Are Cool, and L. Cohen's influence being the Guest from his recent Songs album. Years ago, my dearest mum, little sister and I holidayed with a relative in Dublin. One day after dinner and washing up duties, I took a quick march to the Grand Canal Bank, at the back of the house. A family of swans passed by as I sat and sneaked a cigarette, grateful to be a guest. I slept happily that night. Maestro Sansons conducted my dreams. I coughed and spluttered like thundering Jesus, but was mated for life through that memory.
Red alert. I detached the newly printed, word-processed and carefully hung poster from the SuperValu notice board, stuffed it in the pouch of my wheelie bag and hurried purposely to my mother Joan's hospital bed for my usual Friday night visit. I had long lost the Friday feeling. It was more than 7 years now, so I wasn't thanking Crunchy or anyone. I arrived to find the ward was closed again. The do not enter sign was slid across, so I paced up and down the bleak corridor, conflicted all over again. Will I produce the poster? I won't. Will I? Won't I? I will. Look, I don't know. Is it a good time? It's never a good time. It'll never be a good time. Sure, I must buckle up the courage sometime before it's too late, I resolved. Nuala Fallon's words flashed before me again. Words that give us an insight into family dynamics. She observed that often family members get around things by just not talking about them. She contended that families often never have an argument because they're too afraid of starting anything will start everything. Whatever about anything and everything and everyone, I thought now is my chance, as there's likely to be no one else around, judging by other quiet Friday nights. Besides, I conceded it's not healthy to be keeping things in any longer. Before I knew it, the double doors of the ward lunged open and I was catapulted to my role at my mother's bedside. When I had her needs attended to, her exercises done, the weather discussed, the news imparted and the knitting straightened out, I sunk into the nearest chair, launching into her full blast. You'd never guess what I saw on SuperValu, I got. You'd never guess what I saw on the SuperValu notice board. No, what? Hurry on with it, she replied. Look, I said, producing the poster from my wheelie bag and shoving it right in her face. You know I can't see right. Call it out to me, she directed. I duly obeyed and proceeded to read aloud. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. You should see the photo of them I added. Oh, take your breath. Would you credit it? And they're red shoes, I proclaimed. Don't tell me you're still on about your red shoes. Yourself and your red shoes. Will you forget about those red shoes for once and for all? She exasperated. Sure I would if it was that simple, I said, and in one way I know you're right, but I can't explain this thing I have about red shoes. I can't. Sure it can't be that I tormented you to buy them for me the few times we were in town together long ago. Surely there was no pest or power that time, I said. Was there even red shoes, I wondered to myself. Nevertheless, will someone enlighten me as my obsession with red shoes? I pleaded out loud. With that, the sound of footsteps brought a welcome distraction. A voice called out, Evening, Joan. Evening, Sheila. We had a visitor, Willie Hallisley, an old neighbour from home. I'm disturbing you there, or am I disturbing you? He inquired gently. Oh, God, you're not. Lord God, Willie, you're not. Of course, she said. And she looked up to the ceiling in thanksgiving. Get a chair for Willie, she ordered, gesturing to me to the stack of visitors' chairs over in the corner. And she turned to welcome him, offering out a shake hands and an explanation with it. An explanation, I may add, that was not forthcoming to me in all my soul searching. With the fuss over Willie, Ma must have forgotten I was still in earshot. You came a good time, she said. You came a good time, Willie. Sheila had me on the hot coals. You know, she was always in hospital as a child. Do you remember that, Willie? Do I? What? How could I forget it? Many's the fright she gave me during my squirting nights, and she turning blue before her very eyes. Well, I had red shoes got for her one time, and she was inside so long, weren't they too small for her when she came home? I took no notice, of course, at the time, and got rid of them fairly fast. But herself, Malair, gestured ma'am to me as I returned. with Willie's chair. Could anything cure her? There's still something wrong with her. She's iron blue in the face now with a grown adult and the size when she's looking for her baby shoes. And besides, what can I do about it? And the cut in me in here, she trailed off. I collapsed into Willie's chair. The penny had dropped, whatever but the price. Next up is Katrina.
The black clouds which leave a shadow above us all sometimes conjoin, resulting in an unprecedented storm, leaving marks upon us all which will never fade. The skies turn grey, the wind howls, the rain lashes, everything hitting at once. It just keeps coming, unstoppable, and you can feel every bit of it in every morsel of your being. Eventually, a miraculous event occurs, and the anguish melts into a balmy sky.
My circle is different from yours. What if your whole life you were inside a circle? A sphere. Would the light shine through? Would it be absolutely transparent? Is it like love, like laughter, like a tear? What if I was a triangle till my corners were chipped away, like music, a poem, a song? You said the words in my circles are worthless. I made a triangle with words. I could see its symmetry, hidden in the face of flowers, in the faces of smiling children, easing the old people's hearts. A triangle fits inside a circle. Should my circle collide with yours, would we stay bouncing off one another? Could words possibly make sense then? Or would they go round and around, hacking, cutting bones, picking at flesh, rounding the edges of my triangle? Thank you.
It's called Call Centre Rockstar, or The Girl at Station 7. I was working in a call centre, giving out advice, but really I'm a rock star, thinking, for God's sake, get a life. I like the girl in Station 7, her long brown hair and freckles. I like her rock chick clothes, the way she looks so bored, the way she holds the telephone and gives a moody look. I catch her eye and smile. Usually she looks away, but I detect half a smile today and wish that we could meet at break and somehow I could make a date. At night I am a rock star. I play at the local pub, but tonight I'm at work and it's quiet. It's Saturday night and X Factor's on the telly. No one rings us with complaints, which gives me time to smile again at the girl in Station 7. I want her to come with me and hear me play for her, and still as yet we have not met, as we don't go on the same break ever, never. The phone keeps ringing on and on, with problems so trivial. Who cares about your club card points? Your food was out of date, your Sunday supplement was missing. My voice is calm and pleasant, but my head is ready to burst until I think of my rock star queen, my girl at Station 7. The rota's changed this week, and at precisely 7:30, we go on break together. I think I am in heaven. Thank you.
Conflict differs depending on opinion. One man's justice fighter, another bloke's objectionable. And while sensationalism lends what's biased sense, media moguls set their trends. Iffy viewpoints foisted upon impressionable juveniles, and one time, myself admittedly amongst them. Hence is proof of scant surprising, conflict differs with viewpoint, and I who bought in and that early to warfare's comics, thrillers and novels, can scarcely lately stomach the same. Better clued in, let's hope, these days, Empathy all the more accounting for my no longer even owning television, as I've had it of the years protesting. As Spock's logic, symptomatic thereof, my withdrawal from any trash goes, conflict content really missable. And Renu is next. Renu.
Which meant you have accomplished what you were destined to. No choices of right or left, just a straight road lined with life stones at set intervals that indicated the stage of life you are at. You could return if you liked to a particular life stone to complete an unfinished task. Invent a better version of yourself and start afresh on a blank page from that life stone. Labyrinthine roads that life travels. I have always found myself at crossroads. As a child, I was confused. As a teenager, I was terrible, questioning everything and trying to find answers. I had accumulated information in the faith I was born, and I followed my faith religiously. Though some of my ideas were going in the other direction, causing a conflict. I thought conflict is a result of ignorance. Memory is still fresh. Flicking through the pages of my history book, his picture appeared on the left-hand page. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was born in 1772. He was a social reformist. He propagated equality for women, education for girls, and widow remarriage. Sati system was followed by rural communities in certain parts of India, where the recently widowed woman sacrificed her life by falling on the deceased husband's funeral pyre. Rajaram Mohan Roy formed a movement to fight against social evils and against the barbaric practice of sati, and a law was passed in 1829. When I was in college, a young bride, just about 19, was burnt alive on her husband's funeral pyre. I associated with the young bride, or with the meaningless law, or the society that did not accept a change in practice and belief system. I couldn't say which one. Society was much less tolerant than it is today. Memories become fuzzy and muddled. At every stage of life, I find myself at crossroads. Sometimes I select a road untraveled. Other times, memories of events lead me. Some other times, all roads seem covered by shadows of trees lined along the long roads. After crossing my imaginary life stones, I now experience a newfound confidence to act according to my own belief. People react by their association with time, place, and person. Philosophy says, if you have the confidence to act according to your belief, and if you accommodate, there is no conflict. But the world of living does not accept philosophy. Thank you.
When we say, let's go to war, we pretend we don't mean, let us go and kill some humans. These humans haven't caused the trouble. Those that send others to war stay behind and assure their own security, while the innocent get killed and may not be remembered. When a shot is fired, a soul or two is lost. When we say we have won, millions are lying dead in the streets. Somebody's father may have just been killed. Somebody's mother, sister, or brother. Somebody's effort and dream has been destroyed, bringing to nothing years of art, love, and efforts. A day of mourning is a faint cover for centuries of destruction. Thank you.
This is a song I wrote a few years ago, and it's called The Jeannie Johnson. Spring 1848, tossed on a tide of immigration, lost to the barren land, bad laws decimate a nation. cold and hungry at the quay, waiting for the tide to turn. 200 sailing from Tralee, and in the night a child is born. James Attridge at the helm commands a crew of 17. His copper-fastened ship lost not one soul upon the sea. They told their stories from the land, sang the songs we're singing still, holding in their laboring hands their hopes, their holiness, their will. On the Jeannie Johnson, on the Jeannie Johnson, tears rain upon the deck. On the Jeannie Johnson, on the Jeannie Johnson, sail onward to Quebec. Sorry. Drop anchor at Groseal. This quarantine, this dying station, and maybe time will heal this open wound, this devastation. But Blennerhassett's word holds sway, and Douglas waves a ship to pass. We stand in silence for the souls, the coffin ships, their flags half-mast. The journey's end in sight, we're in fresh water of the river. The red roofed cabin lights shine out along the bay forever. At sea for nearly 50 days, now cross the border into Maine, or take a steamboat down the lakes, or here in Canada remain. On the Jeannie Johnson, on the Jeannie Johnson, tears rain upon the deck. On the Jeannie Johnson, on the Jeannie Johnson, sail onward to Quebec. And some will be presidents, some will build towns and roads and cities. Others would end their days and only needed care and pity. And it's well we may recall when strangers land upon our shores, those ships that sailed the ocean to Quebec, New York, and Baltimore. On the Jeannie Johnson, on the Jeannie Johnson, tears rain upon the deck. On the Jeannie Johnson, on the Jeannie Johnson, sail onward to Quebec. Thank you. Now, Owen.
Now when I was a young man, I carried me pack, and I lived a free life for the rover. From the Murray's green basin to the dusty outback, well, I was my Matilda all over. Then in 1915, me country says, son, it's time to stop rambling, there's work to be done. So he gave me a tin hat, and he gave me a gun. And he marched me away to the war, if you know it. And the band played Waltzing Matilda as a ship pulled away from the quay. And amid all the tunes, flag waving and cheers, we sailed off for Gallipoli.
Me? A confused husband? I'm not a confused husband. It's you. You don't communicate. You don't tell me anything. Why don't you tell me things? I find out everything from other people. You had 50 partners before me. And now you're thinking of becoming a lesbian. And after all I did for you, I let you convert our front room into a holistic healing center. I put up with your Pilates, your bioenergy, and your Reiki. I even let you put soya milk into the fridge. All I ask is that you tell me things. I didn't ask. Oh, it's all my fault. I never asked, but I just assumed that since you talk all the time that you're telling me things. What do you be talking about? On our honeymoon down in Ballybunion, I had ringing in my ears. I thought it was the chlorine in the pool. It was you. You didn't stop talking for the whole 10 days. Well, what were you talking about? All waffle, I suppose. All waffle. Why don't you tell me things? There was a phone call for you yesterday from an equestrian center. Are you thinking of getting a horse? There isn't room in this house for my Johnny Cash CDs. Where are we going to put a horse? Why don't you communicate with me? I'm confused. Maybe I am a confused husband. And Sheila Kelly with Conflict in Kerry.
Kerry conflict. I'm not of Kerry. No, not of Kerry. Sorry, no way. Sorry, can't help it. Not of Kerry, like my mother before me, and her mother's mother, and her man. Not of Kerry, like my father before me, and his father's father, and prehistoric Cork man. I'm not of Kerry, by Kerry, for Kerry. No Kerry DNA, no Kerry GAA, no green and gold array. But Kerry voices came on every little wind, whispering across the half door of the mind, offering the full measure of adventure. Life chauffeurs me now along its wet roads, hard shoulders and soft margins. Roads that are paved with silver and gold, the scenic route from Doonanore to Paulinarrigate. I am now of Kerry, and still Cork that I am, from that day forward and this day forward, and till death do us part, for always I am Kerry.
The clinical smell violates my senses as I enter. I continue on my journey along narrow, gloomy corridors. As I near my destination, fear begins to set in. I take my seat amongst the many others waiting. My mind begins to drift into the unknown abyss. Suddenly, I am brought back to reality by the sound of my name. My hands start to tremble, my brow begins to sweat. I take my new seat on the hard, cold chair. He looks at his computer and back to me. I can see by his eyes, it's not good. He begins to speak. My mind erupts in an explosion of fireworks. The explosion ravishes through me, dispersing all of my feelings. I can feel an abundance of my desires, pushing against these fireworks, fighting to extinguish the calamity that has erupted in my mind. He is still speaking. I think he is reassuring me, but my thoughts return to these two emotions conflicting within. One trying to save me from the hurt, the other is catapulting me downwards. As he finishes talking, I'm left sitting there, trying to encourage my desires, to contain my scattered feelings, reinstate sanity to my mind.
A long tortoise road has ended, and peace has come at last, but conflict remains in the hearts of those affected by the past. We live in the shelter of both islands, our history closely entwined. There were terrible atrocities committed on behalf of both sides. Was it worth the loss of life? Our island is still divided. Have we learned at last to tolerate our differences and yet celebrate that we are very much the same? Diversity is now the name of the game. The Queen of England and our President have met with pomp and ceremony. Our flags stood side by side. Both anthems were playing. Old wounds respected and repaid, extraordinary in its own way. Ireland and Britain, our friendship is now official.
Guardian. Whoever unravels reputedly what King Gordius tied, my convoluted binding will rule the turbulent times. All through ancient Asia, held in the grip of conquest, just like riddle of the Sphinx, and my unsolvable eternal conundrum. They call me guardian, string fellow, sought to unravel compound knots, and am on the prowl, looking for Alexander, the great insight to cut the cord. Due respect to convoluted, by Gordius tugged real tight. Where in the world would I be without the royal skill to bind? Reputes the spur to effort, fame might be mine with verse, and my enigma are knots to cut. Am I proven or am I chancer, Gordian intended for tempered steel, destined to part before the blade of a warrior, fearsome Alexander dares to answer. Make way for the great warrior, cutting to the chase. Why should a knotty problem, the great one, Alex, phase? Think of gleaning freedom, guardian from tied bonds. Methinks you protest too much. Release is yours with jabs. Alexander's swift jabs slash the ribbons, enigmatic guardians, conundrum knots. Greater Asia trembles, the next for conquest. Alexander proves why the greats deserve. Thank you.
Like a bug in my stomach, I wanted to throw her things from the house, just to get my escape. But she received this news with smile, as if I'm about to quench her desperate thirst. Then I realized something is wrong. Who will come to my aid? I paused and cried. Golden was that moment of silence, the teenage trick, moment of confusion for both mother and child. Thank you. And my second one is in between two countries. Maybe between two counties, Kerry and Cork. And so I don't know if it's in between Kerry and Nigeria or Ireland and Nigeria. So you can take it to the county. All right. Exactly. Because I actually went to Dublin, you see, and I'm in Kerry. In between two countries and in between two lands, the bridge of distance only for the body, different mind, living together as one. Thought of love, pain and tears, the heartbeats, the daydreams, the teardrops. Hope is the ceiling on which the house is built, the bridge of distance, not a barrier. Priceless is this shelter, built in love, admiration, and trust. Maybe life will keep me, maybe life will keep it from storm. Maybe life will break it, making it a mere dream. Oh, how we are denied the knowledge of tomorrow.
Deirdre is not dead. She hasn't left me. Her clothes are still here, all the creams and lotions she puts on her face. She's my wife, my best friend. Every morning I go to the hospital to see her. I talk to her. I buy the Irish Times and read it aloud to her. I go again in the evening, and when I meet the doctors and nurses, they stay positive. They would never say that there's no hope. I bring the Evening Herald and talk her through that. Then we stick on the telly. She has always liked Coronation Street and Fair City, a Dublin soap. Deirdre will know the characters by their voices, of course, and she knows I'm here. I'm not a follower of the soaps myself, so I lounge at the end of her bed and do the crossword. Now and then, I touch her hand. I have a thing about crosswords, you see. I've been doing the one in the Irish Times now every day since 1973. I keep it in the newspaper until it's as complete as I can get it. Then I cut it out, very delicately place it in a plastic pocket, date it, and put it in a ring binder. I have now started my 41st ring binder. Each of the previous 40 are all proudly shelved in my study. When we were dating from the early to the late 70s, Deirdre found it charming when she discovered my obsession, but later said she thought it a bit weird. She used to tell people about it, but then started to refrain from telling anyone. We fight and argue quite a lot, actually. To quote the poet Sarah Roby, or the fateful precision of a weekly row, a reminder that we matter here, now. That describes me and Deirdre exactly. It builds up slowly, a myriad of tiny little things, and then she erupts. Sometimes the crosswords can go on into the evening, right up to bedtime, but the night's sleep beside each other melts the row. So we go on over the space of a period of time, and you can see there's his obsession with the crosswords in the newspaper, and then the crosswords that they had between each other, and his guilt in the fact that her illness, he's trying to say sorry, and we get to the end. I was furious and upset when I visited the hospital Monday evening. The sister-in-laws had been and had taken it upon themselves to rearrange Dee's room. You might think that a bit petty of me, but I'm the husband, goddammit, and I know best where things are and the way she'd like them. I didn't want Deirdre to sense I was upset, so went home early. Back home, the left-hand side neighbours are cutting their grass or pruning their roses or something. Fuck is all I can think, because there's no escape. They can't garden without long breaks for philosophising with whatever unsuspecting victim happens to be dog walking past. Well, I have no dog, but I know I'm caught. Paperwork and clutter are mounting up and getting final reminders of bills I haven't had a chance to pay with all the hospital trips. The dining room table is clutter, clutter, clutter. I must sort it soon. Last night I dreamt of Deirdre's parents and the first time I met them. I woke and found myself in the bathroom. There was breath fog on the mirror, but I wasn't sure it was mine. I hastily looked behind me, almost expecting to see a human, but of course, I was alone. It had to have been my own breath, of course. I had probably pressed my face too close to the glass without realising it. To be honest, all the decor is hers. I don't know what I'll do with it after she's gone. A man can't live with mink and pink couches and curtains. And there isn't a crack in a wall or a creak under a floorboard that hasn't been dealt with by a carpenter or builder. We were even completely rewired there about 8 years ago. Deirdre is not dead. She hasn't left me. Her clothes are still here, all the creams and lotions she puts on her face. She is my wife, my best friend. Getting back to the crossroads, I am gathering up the ones from the past week, and placing them in the 2014 ring binders. That's the very thing I'm at when the hospital rings. Thank you very much.
We're going to enjoy an African music, and the group keep going, better and more diverse, and we hope we'll see you again next year with more diverse activities. And we want to say a big birthday to Petrina's dad. Happy birthday to you. Petrina just joined the group last year, and she's been fabulous. And this is her first time in Listowel. And I know you enjoyed her work, didn't you? And she just told us that her dad is his birthday today. And I'm sure you enjoyed seeing her read. Happy birthday to you. And so, relax and enjoy the African music. And if you have any other activity to go, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you.